My Marcus came when I got called in for a school relationship. That night, he pulled out his belt and made me reenact the love letter line by line. Lift your hips, tell uncle, what does brother is so good at topping mean? I buried my head in the pillow, trembling with every breath, but I could only let him have his way. Seeing me distracted, he deliberately pushed into me harder. Was it him or me? When appeared at the office doorway, only one thought ran through my mind. I was completely screwed. It's written so explicitly, Mr. David lowered his voice, and what's more, it's about 2 boys. Marcus must have rushed from a board meeting, dressed in a black suit, his top button still fastened. Upon hearing the last sentence, he cast a cold glance, his cheek twitching, and he smiled a humorless smile. It must be a misunderstanding. Even though our Finn likes to skip class and fight, he's never done anything out of line. I pursed my lips, thinking he might as well have said nothing. This love letter fell out of his desk in front of everyone, from this student named Ethan. Mr. David tapped the evidence. And he's a promising student in our grade. Marcus's face grew increasingly grim as he looked at the words in black and white before him. But after only a moment's pause, he took off the watch from his left wrist. Since he's a promising student, it's even less advisable to blow this out of proportion. He pushed the luxury watch toward Mr. David. Don't you agree? Seeing David's feigned look of difficulty, I knew the matter was settled. Ahem, Finn, you can go back to the classroom now. Mr. David waved me off, clearly intending to settle things with Marcus privately. I was about to escape when Marcus suddenly called my name from behind, Finn. I instantly stood at attention. Before, no matter how much trouble I caused at school, as long as I wasn't hurt, he never cared. He'd just send uncle to apologize and pay some money to resolve it. But today, not only had he come himself, he had also called me by my full name, which was unheard of. I had a bad feeling. When I turned around, I noticed he had loosened his tie and unbuttoned 2 buttons of his shirt without me noticing. I suddenly recalled overhearing his employees talking the last time I went to his office. With Marcus's looks, even if he ever fell on hard times, he could still become a top escort at an exclusive club. He raised his eyes and swept a glance over me, saying unhurriedly, "Tonight, remember to come home for dinner." It sounded more like a punishment. A chill ran down my spine, and I fled back to the classroom as if escaping. Along the way, people poked their heads out, looking at me curiously. "Are you okay? I heard your uncle came. Should I just confess?" Chloe, my deskmate, leaned over, resting on the desk, and poked my arm. She had liked Ethan for a long time. Looking like a good girl, she had actually written some smutty fanfiction with Ethan as the main character, but it had fallen out halfway through writing. When I took the blame for it, I actually hadn't thought much about it. Isn't it normal for 2 guys to write some smutty stuff? But I didn't expect Mr. David to actually call Marcus, and even escalate this into baseless harassment of a promising student by me. "It's fine, go back to your class." I pulled my school uniform over my head and slept fearfully until school ended. When I woke up, Chloe was gone, leaving a handwritten notebook of incorrect problems and a few scattered Jell-O cups on the desk. I crammed everything into my backpack, and as soon as I stepped out, I ran into Uncle standing in the hallway. On the way, the car was as quiet as if we were going to a funeral. I cautiously asked about Marcus's attitude, only receiving a "take care of yourself" look. I gritted my teeth, thinking it was just a beating, one way or another. But who knew, when I pushed open the door, I was more scared than if I'd seen a ghost. Marcus his back to the door, the sleeves of his black shirt rolled up to his elbows, a grayish-white apron tied around his waist, busy in the kitchen. Hearing me enter, Marcus didn't turn his head. "You're back. Dinner's ready." Marcus was always incredibly busy at work. When he returned home at dawn, I was usually already asleep. Come to think of it, we hadn't seen each other in over a month. Today, Marcus not only came home early but also cooked dinner himself. Was I dreaming? "Why are you just standing there? Come get a knife and fork." I hadn't fully recovered my senses. When I squatted down to look, my knees were still weak, and if I hadn't quickly grabbed Marcus's pant leg, I might have fallen headfirst. Marcus had long legs and stood in front of the cabinet, not dodging at all. "It's so hard to find something." Marcus lowered his head through the gap in his arms to look at me, his hands still working. A faint scent wafted over from above my head. I don't know if it was my imagination, but as Marcus passed by me, his calf unconsciously brushed against my side. "Come over and sit once you find them." Marcus had removed the other chairs, leaving only the seat next to him for me. I had no choice. I circled halfway around and sat next to Marcus, clutching the hem of my shirt. I fidgeted with my shirt hem. Uncle, actually, I don't like him anymore. Marcus had replaced his watch with the cheap one I'd given him, which cost a few thousand, and it looked completely out of place with his five-figure suit. He lowered his head, his eyelashes casting a shadow, slowly and deliberately cutting the bloody steak. Don't like him anymore, so that means you liked him a lot before? I nearly choked. How could he just throw dirt at me like that? Marcus put down his knife and fork, his large hand gripping the back of my neck, his calloused thumb gently rubbing twice. I instinctively flinched away but was pulled back into his embrace. A crisp pine scent enveloped me, his voice hoa. RSE but full of oppressive power. Why are you flinching? Marcus's hand slowly loosened, moved down, and stroked my back, as if it were nothing more than a simple comforting gesture between uncle and nephew. It's perfectly normal for someone your age to like anyone. He looked like an open-minded parent. Marcus put his two fingers together and pushed the cut steak toward me. Eat more, you've gotten so thin. It seemed he hadn't taken this little incident of mine to heart at all. Marcus hadn't finished high school before being brought back to the Duan family, where he clawed his way up from nothing to his current position. To him, a trivial matter like a school relationship in high school might not have mattered at all. I ate while comforting myself, eventually cheering myself up completely, and the plate of steak was quickly emptied. When I leaned back in the chair, patting my stomach, I suddenly realized Marcus was gone. Full? A hoarse voice came from behind me, and I shot upright. Marcus stood leaning against the doorframe, a belt in his hand, staring intently at me. If you're full, come here. Kneel. My legs went weak, and I nearly knelt on the spot. As I recalled, Marcus had only hit me once before. It was probably in my 8th grade year when someone claimed to know where my parents were, and I, in a daze, followed them. Only when I got there did I realize I was nothing more than a pawn for Marcus's rivals to leverage against him. They used me to force Marcus to give up a plot of land in Westwood. That was the first major deal Marcus handled after returning to the Duan family. Losing that land meant everything he had in the Duan family would have to be rebuilt from scratch. The night he brought me home, Marcus nearly beat me to death with a belt. I gripped the corner of the table, the smooth marble digging painfully into my palm, and I unconsciously took half a step back. Uncle, I really changed. I don't like guys. After hearing my unconvincing excuse. Marcus's expression grew even colder. I was a notorious troublemaker at school, known for skipping class and fighting. If saw me like this in front of Marcus, he'd mock me for years. But even small-time thugs fear big-time thugs. If had ever truly witnessed Marcus angry, he would kneel faster than I did. The bedroom light was off, faint light filtered in from the living room, and Marcus stood in that square of light. I lowered my head and obediently shuffled into the bedroom, kneeling by the bed as soon as I entered. When wasn't home, I often ran around with a pillow. Last night, I had fallen asleep in his room. The velvet pillow, mixed with both Marcus's and my scent, now felt suffocating. I was wrong. Uncle. I changed my strategy. Endless excuses were no match for simply admitting fault. Perhaps it would lessen my suffering. Marcus tugged on the belt, and a horrifying smack echoed in the darkness. Damn, this brand of belt sounds so sturdy. I'm not buying him this again next time. The folded belt gained a certain stiffness, sliding along my spine, from the back of my neck all the way to the most sensitive spot on my tailbone. Marcus deliberately slapped it twice there, scoffing, "So you don't like guys anymore?" I shook my head, my voice muffled, "No, I don't. I don't." "So you liked them before?" He used the same trick again, twisting my words. Marcus was doing this on purpose. It seemed a beating was inevitable today, so I might as well let him vent properly. I shifted my knees on the wool rug, looking like I was bravely preparing for my demise. But the imagined pain didn't come. Instead, Marcus's voice sounded from behind me. Ethan's calloused palm clamped my lower back, and my undulating lower back curve seemed to be sucking on his fingers. I only remembered halfway through that this was the smutty fanfiction Chloe had written. When I took the blame, Chloe had tugged at my sleeve and whispered, "This one's a bit rough." My essays always failed, so I couldn't tell if it was rough or not. But this was way too rough. Footsteps slowly approached from behind, and the darkness magnified all my senses. A hand wrapped around my waist from behind, fingers slowly tightening. Marcus seemed to be genuinely searching for the spot of my lower back curve. Sucking on his fingers. "How do you suck, huh?" Marcus withdrew his other hand, and the belt landed unceremoniously on my raised butt. It stung fiercely. I only flinched once, and Marcus pulled me back more forcefully. "Not very realistic, is it?" Marcus seemed to be kneeling behind me, his dense breathing pressing down like a spiderweb. Or are you saying only he can make you like that? He nudged my lower back with his knee, as if determined to get an answer. I gritted my teeth, trembling even as I inhaled. Marcus might as well just beat me up. Might as well kill me. Receiving no answer, Marcus stood up. He wasn't a particularly patient person to begin with. Take off your school uniform. Marcus lit a cigarette, pacing restlessly behind me. It seemed he only realized today that I was no easy person to handle. Halfway through undressing, he suddenly changed his mind, like an agitated parent who didn't know how to punish their child. Don't take it off, bite it. My school uniform was already halfway off, stuck awkwardly around my shoulder blades. I cursed under my breath and obediently bit down on the hem of my shirt. When the rough school uniform brushed against my back, I gasped. Damn it, today in the locker room, when I was changing my jersey, Jake, that jerk, grabbed me, and it still hurt. Bite down properly. My glistening saliva wet the hem of the shirt. I arched my back, providing Marcus with a perfect outlet for his frustration. Marcus, however, bit down on his cigarette, scoffing and cursing, his voice seeming to be forced out. Your paramour is quite wild, isn't he? I looked up at him stealthily, not understanding, the hem of my shirt still in my mouth, revealing a sliver of my abdomen. Marcus pressed the cigarette against the door. The sparks flickered twice before dying out completely, and a wisp of blue smoke drifted upwards. Read this love letter. Marcus threw the damnable smutty fanfiction at my face, his hands trembling as he unbuttoned his shirt. Read it. You're not sleeping until you've read it 100 times. I watched Marcus's retreating figure, thinking he must have truly lost his mind from anger this time. If he wanted me to read it, I'd just read it obediently. The next day, I was, unsurprisingly, late. Even though there was a wool rug on the floor, my knees still had 2 bruises. With every move, my butt stung fiercely. When I left, Marcus was already gone. When I walked back into the classroom, clutching my butt, Chloe gave me a sympathetic look. I immediately straightened my back. It didn't actually hurt that much. Just okay. Really, just okay. Chloe handed me a Jell-O cup. I thought you weren't coming today. He didn't hit you last night, did he? I gritted my teeth and shook my head. Chloe sighed in relief. That's good. Oh, by the way, Ethan was looking for you today? Ethan? Who? Why does that sound so familiar? As I sucked on the Jell-O cup, it suddenly clicked. Oh my god, wasn't that the main character of the smutty fanfiction I memorized last night? Ahem, what did he want with me? Chloe's eyes dimmed. He didn't say. He just left when you weren't here. After all that happened, it would probably be difficult for them to be together now. Just as I was about to say a few comforting words to my deskmate, I looked up and saw the person in question standing at the door. Ethan, expressionless, knocked on the door. Can you step out for a moment? Unlike reckless rich kids like me, Ethan had truly fought his way through fierce competition to get where he was. He was in the top 20 worldwide for math competitions, so it was no wonder Mr. David protected him so fiercely. I follow. Led Ethan to an abandoned storage room. I couldn't stop in time and bumped into his back. When the cheap, clean scent of laundry detergent wafted over, I instinctively sniffed. It smelled surprisingly good. I'd buy some for Marcus another day. Ethan turned around, frowning at my actions. I nervously touched the tip of my nose. You needed me for something? Ethan slammed the competition problems he was holding onto the desk behind me, raising a cloud of dust, and wrapped his arms around my waist. Do you like me? Huh? Did the news really reach him that fast? I'll let you top me. Can you lend me some money? What? I wasn't smart to begin with, and I felt like Marcus had made me even dumber. Before I could react, Ethan's hand was already on the drawstring of my school uniform pants, just one step away. I slapped him with a smack. My hand tingled, and my voice wouldn't stop trembling. I can lend you money, but no hooking up. Ethan's head was knocked to the side by my slap, his cheek swelling high, bearing a kind of broken, disheveled beauty. I almost immediately recalled the day Marcus was brought back to the Duan family. Marcus was the Duan family's illegitimate son, raised in an orphanage for many years. The family had always known about his existence but refused to take him back. If hadn't broken his leg speeding on the highway chasing Sarah, Marcus might never have known his true identity. He looked exactly like this the day he returned to the Duan family. His short hair was neatly cut, and while his mouth spoke words of gratitude, his predatory gaze kept darting upwards. The family was always aloof and superior. When they didn't acknowledge Marcus, they left him to fend for himself in an orphanage. When they needed him, they disrupted his future, forcibly thrusting everything upon him. Marcus's high school grades were excellent too, but he never went to college. The family threw him into the mud. If he couldn't claw his way out, it was a dead end. Sometimes I felt like he should hate me. Everyone in the Duan family were culprits. Ethan tugged at his pants seam. Thanks, $15,000. I'll pay you back as soon as possible. I remembered Chloe saying Ethan had a gambling father. No matter how rotten a person was, they seemed to wield supreme power over their own children. I was still shaken, holding two drawstrings in my hand. Only when he opened the door and walked past me did I come back to my senses. I tilted my head and glanced at him. I won't say anything about this. Ethan didn't stop. He picked up the competition problems and left. Watching him leave, for the first time I felt that it wasn't so hard to understand why Chloe liked someone like him. I used to occasionally stay at school. But after that incident, Marcus started having Uncle pick me up every day. When I got home on an empty stomach, Aunt, who cleaned the house, hadn't left yet. Starting to live at home now? Aunt, seeing me for several days in a row, chatted with me while cooking. I rested my head on my backpack, lying on the couch. Yeah, I'll come home every day from now on. That's good. You and your uncle, two grown men, living together and often not coming home. The house felt lifeless. Once Martha started talking, she was a complete chatterbox. I fiddled with the edge of the couch. Actually, the house used to be quite lively. When fell in love with Sarah at first sight, Sarah actually had a boyfriend. That jerk Robert forced them to break up, then forcibly married Sarah, using me as leverage to keep her. But actually, I knew earlier than anyone that Sarah didn't like me. I was proof of her life spiraling out of control, living evidence of her sins. I grew up crookedly like that. Classes had been a bit much lately. I had barely been lying on the couch for a few minutes before I drifted off. When I woke again, it was to the sound of the door opening. Aunt, did you leave? Marcus didn't like having other people in the house. Aunt never stayed at the house. She usually came once in the morning and once in the evening to clean and cook. I rubbed my eyes and looked toward the door, seeing a drunken figure. Marcus was back. Ethan asked me for money. I gathered what I had on hand, making it a total of $10,000. Marcus didn't stint on my allowance, but he also didn't keep too much cash around me. I was still short $5,000, so I'd have to ask Marcus. I swayed as I got up but was pushed back onto the couch by the drunk. Marcus held his liquor well. Except for the period right after he returned to the Duan family, he rarely drank this much. He swayed and pressed down on me, his breathing like an impenetrable dark cloud. His chest rose and fell irregularly, his inhales deep, his exhales trembling. How much had he drunk? I pushed his shoulders, but his arms only tightened around me. Uncle, I want to buy something, about $5,000. Marcus wasn't a miser, quite the opposite. He could earn a lot and spend even more, money flowing like water through his hands. Come to think of it, the last time I asked him for money was on his birthday last year. We won the basketball championship, and I used Marcus's money to treat everyone. Most of it was spent, and with the few thousand left, I casually bought him a watch at the mall. Marcus often had business engagements, he wouldn't wear such a cheap watch out. He had looked at the watch then and smiled. Using my money to buy me a gift, that's so you. After that day, I never saw that watch again. If I hadn't given away that watch on impulse, he probably wouldn't have remembered it his whole life. Marcus nuzzled into my embrace like a kitten. My birthday isn't for a while. Marcus's hand roamed aimlessly, then his fingertips suddenly paused when his palm brushed against the scabbed red mark on my back. Finn, he called my name softly, his voice tinged with a hint of grievance. Break up with your paramour. Marcus lifted his head, his cheeks still flushed, but his eyes were a little CL. Error. I can't guarantee I won't do something messed up. Paramour? Heavens, no. Every day at school, all I did was skip class and fight. How did I suddenly become a succubus indulging in public indecency? I pushed Marcus's shoulder. His eyes, like egg yolks, unfocused again. You're the one with a paramour, aren't you? Marcus inhaled. I don't. Let me check if you do. Drunks have no logic. As he spoke, he started trying to pull down my pants. I swear, why are both of you so fixated on my crotch? Marcus. I gripped the drawstring tightly with both hands, defending the last barrier, my voice almost cracking. Marcus, pushed by me, got up and rubbed his face. He seemed to have sobered up, but his face was terrifyingly cold. 1, 2, wasn't he drunk? I pushed him away and bolted upstairs. Don't reason with a drunk. That's what Marcus taught me during his business dinners. Since he'd been drinking, he was slower to react. When I closed the door, Marcus had just reached the second floor. I ignored him no matter how he knocked outside. Only when it was completely quiet outside did I lie on the bed, idly playing with my phone. Ethan had sent a message an hour ago. You didn't take your math notebook. The exam is next week. Do you need me to bring it to you? Ever since I lent him the money I had, he'd periodically lend me his notes. Chloe saw them and was incredibly envious. So I didn't refuse. Just as I was about to reply, he sent another message with a location. Is your house here? Just then, the doorbell rang downstairs. Damn. Marcus was still downstairs. When I went downstairs, the two of them were already sitting face to face on the couch. Ethan's school uniform was faded from washing. He sat up very straight, holding a notebook in his hand. Marcus had drunk the hangover soup on the table, tied his tie, and was feigning sleep with closed eyes, his aura terrifyingly cold. I told you, he won't come out. Call him and see if he'll answer. My phone was always on silent, so I often missed Marcus's calls. When I first started staying at school, Marcus discovered this habit of mine and eventually stopped calling me. Ethan hadn't dealt with people like my uncle, and couldn't even distinguish the hostility in his words. He actually made the call. Marcus pursed his lips. The drunken flush had faded, and his face was terrifyingly cold. As fate would have it, when I walked downstairs holding my phone, I accidentally slid the answer button. When the echo came through the receiver, I suddenly felt like I was back in the situation of being caught red-handed that night. Seriously, why was everything happening at once? I fumbled to hang up the phone. Ethan saw me come down, didn't say much, handed me the notebook, and left. Uncle, I'll walk him out. I forced myself not to meet Marcus's gaze, practically staring a hole through Ethan's back. I'll just ride my bicycle back, you don't need to walk me. Ethan pointed to his bicycle nearby. My mind had already drifted far away, but my feet still followed him. Oh. Finn. Ethan looked into my eyes under the street lamp. Your Marcus likes you. Smack. My phone dropped from my hand. What? I tried to force a smile, but I imagined I must have looked terrifying. Ethan, that nerd, he didn't even know Chloe liked him. What the hell did he know? My phone screen was shattered. I flipped the phone over with my toe and kicked the culprit, a small stone, into the shadows. What are you talking about? I said, your uncle likes you. Ethan, as if afraid he hadn't been clear, lifted his chin and pointed behind me. Now, only Marcus was in that house. What makes you say that? Ethan interrupted me. Because I am. He paused, then added. You are too, aren't you, Finn? I am not. I went back to the house, holding my shattered phone. The lights were off. As soon as I entered, I was pinned against the door. A familiar scent enveloped me, the same shower gel I used. After my parents abandoned me, started living with Marcus. For so many years, our lives were intertwined. Marcus kissed me urgently, without any pattern. He cupped the back of my neck, forcing me to lift my chin to meet him. Our tongues met, like eating jello. I raised my hand and gripped Marcus's neck, but he suddenly laughed. What, saving yourself for your paramour? Perhaps because of the alcohol, Marcus's voice trembled slightly. I took a deep breath. No, I want to ask, do you have anything here? If not, get off me. Marcus only paused for a moment. In the darkness, he kissed me again, his hand roaming my side. I'll have a delivery service bring some over now. Tell me, can you last until then? In the end, I couldn't last. Marcus ferociously forced me to recite the love letter, reenacting the scenes described in it on me. When my reaction wasn't right, he would grit his teeth and slap my butt. Finn, that's not right, start over. Was it him or me? Damn, I'm going to kill him. The next day, I was, predictably, late. My school uniform was stained by that bastard Marcus, so I just threw on a t-shirt. Since started lending me his notes, I'd felt too embarrassed to skip class often. The one time I ran into him while climbing the fence, I felt incredibly guilty. The only 2 times I skipped class were because of Marcus. All because of him. When I walked back into the classroom, clutching my butt, Chloe nearly dropped the pen in her hand. Your Marcus holds such a grudge, huh? How long ago was that, and he's only settling scores now? I didn't want to save face for him anymore. Marcus is just a scoundrel, treacherous and deceitful. Just as I was getting into my rant, my debit card received a $5,000 transfer. Still, he's got some conscience. I immediately transferred $5,000 to Ethan and sent a message, $15,000 all set. Ethan didn't reply. Only when I stuffed my phone back into my desk did it belatedly occur to me. Wait, giving money after sex? Where the hell did he learn that? Wha? Is he treating me like a prostitute? Finn, wanna play basketball? During break, while I was still fuming, Jake came to find me, basketball in hand. No. I lay on my desk, my face full of resentment. Marcus, if you dare treat me like a prostitute, I'll kill you. Jake ran a hand through his hair. What's wrong? It was just that one time I accidentally grabbed you. Don't be so mad at your bro, it should be healed by now, let me see if it's healed. As spoke, he went to lift my shirt, that shameless, straight jerk. Whoa, holy crap. I pressed down on Jake's hand, finally getting my shirt back down, and quickly covered his mouth with my other hand. Jake's eyes were wide. No way, Finn, your girlfriend's pretty intense, huh? I was really grateful for that. I walked him out of the classroom, covering his mouth, but Jake didn't stop talking. Why didn't you tell me? Who is she? I rested my arms on the railing in the hallway. I had no idea where to even begin explaining this, so I just let Jake keep guessing wildly. I heard you got caught for a school relationship while I was absent for a few days, is that true? Jake got more and more excited with his guesses, patting my shoulder. Was it Ethan, right? It was him? I impatiently followed his gaze. Downstairs, by the school gate, Ethan was surrounded by a group of people. I recognized the leader. His father was a debt collector, and he was a notorious troublemaker from the neighboring school. Last time he called me a bastard no one wanted, and I stabbed his hand with a pen. I squinted. Ethan, that nerd, couldn't even take one slap from me. I wondered if he'd survive long enough to pay me back. Blake, your hand healed that fast? Ethan was pushed to the end of the alley, and the notes he hadn't had a chance to lend me were scattered on the ground. Blake lowered his hand, turned around at the sound, and I leaned against the wall, twirling my keyring, watching him. If my butt wasn't still hurting, I would have already lunged at him with a punch. That shameless Marcus, once I make money, I'll definitely throw $5,000 in his face and make him serve me properly. Blake's left hand was still bandaged. Seeing me willingly walk into a trap, he twisted his neck. Finn, you dare show your face around me? What's there to be afraid of? Don't you still have one hand? Stung by my jab, Blake gritted his teeth and lunged at me. Finn, you bastard. Blake had been involved in street fights for years, and with a debt collector for a father as a role model, his movements were naturally much faster than mine, especially with my butt still hurting. After dodging a few of his punches, I was starting to struggle. Jake, if you don't come now, I'm really going to get creamed here. I yelled twice towards the top of the alley. Blake initially thought I'd actually brought backup and stared blankly upwards, following my gaze. A bird flew across the narrow strip of sky. Blake chuckled. Ha, Finn, who are you kidding? You think the school cares about this kind of crap? They're too busy avoiding it. Blake slowly approached. You crippled my left hand back then. I'm not greedy, I'll just cripple your left leg, and we'll call it even. He raised the blade high in his hand, aiming it at my calf. I remembered that Robert, at that time, had his left leg amputated. Then, not long after being in a wheelchair, he committed suicide. A whooshing sound reached my ears, followed by a click. Blake's wrist was dislocated, and the gleaming knife clattered to the ground. Marcus stood in front of me, his face grim. Useless. Marcus's voice was devoid of warmth. Jake, dribbling a basketball, followed behind him, glancing at the younger guys who hadn't had a chance to act and were now too scared to even fart. Exactly, Finn, how come you can't even beat one guy now? Marcus tilted his head. I'm talking about you. It's so hard to find a place. Jake's dribbling paused. Hey, no, uncle, I called you. It was me. No, Matt. How much of a bastard Blake was, he knew that in front of an absolute bastard like Marcus, getting out early was the smart move. Get up. Marcus extended his hand to me. The web of his thumb and forefinger had a thin callus, which had made my thigh tingle last night. My butt was still hurting, so I slowly got up, and Marcus gave me a cold stare. You're quite the bleeding heart, aren't you? Marcus pulled me, about to shove me into the car. Let's go get you checked out. Did you catch some Hero Saves the Damsel in Distress virus? Just as the car door was about to close, Ethan grabbed the doorframe. Ethan had scraped his arm bloody when he was pushed down, and he was only just getting up now. My phone was snatched then. I got the money, thank you. And thanks for today too. Ethan was usually a man of few words. I didn't know why he was so chatty today. With every extra word he spoke, Marcus's face grew colder. Jake, uncharacteristically perceptive, helped Ethan to the nurse's office. Only and I were left in the car. Marcus licked his sharp teeth and unbuttoned his cuffs. You gave him the money? I hadn't even settled scores with him for treating me like a prostitute, and now he was questioning me? What's wrong with me lending him money in an emergency? You gave me the money, so it's mine. I was actually a bit guilty, my hand gripping the seatbelt tightly. How much? $15,000. Marcus unbuckled his own seatbelt and leaned closer, patting my face. You gave all the money to that pretty boy? Do you still have money to eat? I couldn't discern the emotion in Marcus's voice. $15,000 wasn't a large sum to him. Besides, he gave me the money, so I had the right to spend it. Finn, you're really something. Marcus straddled my lap and patted my face. The passenger seat wasn't spacious to begin with, and with two grown men squeezed together, there was hardly any room for our legs. Marcus, what are you doing? We're outside. I instinctively tried to cover my but I realized I couldn't move at all. Marcus pulled out his tie and bound my wrists together. Did I say what I was going to do? He tied them deliberately. Or are you saying you're expecting me to do something to you right here? I tried to squeeze my legs together, but he pushed them open from below with his knee. Finn, my patience is limited. I'm saying this one last time. Marcus was still kissing me urgently. Break it off with your paramour. Don't make me lose my mind. He didn't need to say it, I'd almost forgotten. Marcus and Robert, half-brothers, had an inherited tendency for possessiveness and dominance running in their veins. I deliberately called him uncle, and he bit my chin, his voice turning fierce. Finn, don't call me that. He knew, too, that our names shouldn't be associated. Marcus eventually took me to the hospital for a full checkup. I hadn't caught any exotic disease from that heroic rescue, but I unexpectedly ran into someone I hadn't seen in a long time at the hospital. While went to get the car, I was at the registration desk on the first floor when I saw Sarah. She saw me too. Our eyes met across the bustling crowd, and our last meeting felt like it was just yesterday. What's wrong? She sat beside me, but her gaze wouldn't meet mine. My throat tightened slightly, and I licked my lips. Nothing, just a routine checkup. What about you? I actually had so many questions I wanted to ask. Why did she disappear after Robert committed suicide? Why did neither of them like me? Was I not worth loving at all? Not even a little bit? She lowered her head, and tears fell onto the back of her hand without warning, blooming like flowers. Actually. She looked up, staring into my eyes, her lips trembling slightly. You look quite a lot like him. Him? No one had ever said that Robert and I looked alike. Suddenly, I seemed to understand what she meant. Have you ever wondered why the Duan family never groomed you as an heir? I dug my nails into my palm, but she barely paused. Because you're not a Duan family child at all. So even that fake grandfather-grandson bond was a lie. I was already pregnant when I got married, but I didn't know. I also thought you were a Duan family child, just like the Duans did, so from the moment you were born, I never wanted to see you. A robotic female voice echoed in the spacious first-floor lobby, like time flowing backward. What a pity, time truly couldn't go back. He already had a strong need for control, and after his car accident, he was confined to a wheelchair. Suicide was inevitable. Why wouldn't I run? What would I do if I didn't run? She gave a bitter laugh, tilted her head, and wiped away the tears from her eyes. I didn't blame her for running. But why? Why had she never considered taking me with her? As if she'd heard my unspoken thoughts, she added, even if I'd known you weren't his child, I still wouldn't have taken you. My heart felt as if it had stopped beating entirely. I stared at her blankly, not even noticing Marcus standing at the entrance. Finn, I neglected you for so many years. I couldn't help it. She blinked, and tears streamed down her face. I don't know how to make it up to you. I'd rather just keep being wrong. She had never considered my feelings, never considered my situation in the Duan family. She just didn't want to admit her miserable past, even if that past included her and her beloved's child. Suddenly, I remembered the first time Marcus attended my parent-teacher conference. He hadn't yet established himself in the Duan family back then. His hair was messy when he rushed over. When he sat next to my seat, an unlit cigarette dangled from his lips. It was hard for me to reconcile the person in front of me with the promising student who almost got into a top-tier university. Marcus tapped my barely passing test paper with a crooked finger. Not bad, you passed. Let's get some extra food tonight. Mr. David was lecturing on Tage, while Marcus whispered to me from below, asking how I liked my steak cooked. Annoyed by the question, I told him medium rare. From then on, he really did only make medium rare steak. That night, eating the bloody steak, I asked him, I skipped class. Don't you think I'm a bad kid? Marcus unbuttoned a button on his shirt. Why do you fight? They say my parents don't want me. That's fine. If you can't beat them, go train. What about skipping class? To the cemetery to see Robert, and to the police station to ask about Sarah's whereabouts. Go ahead. Need a car? Oh, I forgot you can't drive. My tears seemed to have dried up. The PA system called Sarah's name over and over. It was like many years ago, when I used to call out for her in my dreams again and again. The difference was, she had never responded to me. Goodbye. Take care. I held her hand, it was cold and lifeless, just like in my dreams. It was a long time before Marcus drove the car over, pulling up steadily at the hospital entrance. His left wrist was bare. On the way home, Marcus didn't say a word. The moment we entered the house, I shoved him against the door, clutching his throat and biting the soft flesh of his chin. Marcus, are you trying to sleep with me and then not take responsibility? If I hadn't repeated a grade and was already an adult, I could send you to jail. Do you believe that? Marcus didn't say yes or no. His full, M-shaped lips parted slightly, revealing a small, jello cup-like sliver of his tongue. You already knew I wasn't a Duan, didn't you? Marcus finally uttered a few words. I guessed. Figures. A mind that almost got into an Ivy school. I got even angrier and yanked his tie. So why were you still putting on an act in front of me? Marcus effortlessly lifted my legs and pinned me to the couch. Someone who constantly worked out was clearly stronger than a half-hearted amateur like me. I wasn't acting. He even had the nerve to look wronged. The innermost study upstairs. I looked up. That study was always locked, and Marcus had never allowed me inside. Marcus continued, you wouldn't want to see what's in there. For some reason, I thought of the old basement in the house. Marcus held my hand and loosened his tie. For all these years, you've called me uncle, and I've considered myself your elder. You know what kind of person he was, so you should know what kind of person I am. This time, it was Marcus who bit my collarbone, like a small beast. Since you provoked me, don't even think about leaving. Don't make me lock you up. Marcus's breath brushed my ear slowly. Finn, I'll give you one last chance. Do you want to go with her? So this whole time, this was what he was worried about. I wrapped his tie twice around his neck and suddenly pulled him closer. Then do you want me to leave? Marcus didn't speak. Since he was so smart, how could he not realize that she had never intended to take me with her? I hadn't had a home for a long time. Ever since I moved here, I've only had him. Do you want the truth or a lie? A lie. I hope you go with her, live a normal life, and stay far away from me. And the truth? Lock you up, force-feed you medicine every day, and make sure you only see me. Marcus seemed drunk again as he squeezed my neck. I couldn't see anything but him. We were like two beasts in the mud, tearing and licking, never getting enough. Under the moon, shadows danced. Marcus slipped the study key between my teeth. The cold key pressed against my numb, burning tongue, and I could barely feel anything. Finn, don't fall asleep. The night is still long. Marcus's POV extra. The day after my brother committed suicide, I brought Finn home. The redness in his eyes hadn't completely faded, and he sat alone on the steps, looking at me timidly. Uncle, why can't I go to my father's funeral? I locked the second-floor study behind me and walked past him, a cigarette in my mouth, my voice cold. WH. Why would you go, being such a coward? Actually, I had my suspicions about Finn's background. My brother lost a leg in a car accident. When I was taken in by the Duan family from an orphanage, I wasn't much older than Finn. If I could take over the Duan family, why couldn't Finn? It wasn't until my brother committed suicide and Finn's mother disappeared that my biological father, with a cold expression, said he was going to kick Finn out. That's when some of my suspicions were finally confirmed. Finn was a little afraid of me and never brought up the funeral again. He didn't cry or make a fuss, but most nights he didn't sleep soundly. When I came home from working late, sometimes I'd go to his bedroom and sit with him for a while, an unlit cigarette in my mouth. Finn always frowned in his dreams. I just wondered who he thought of when he encountered danger in his dreams. The first person I met when I was brought into the Duan family was Finn. He was wearing a dark green shirt, and seeing the cuts on my face, he shakily applied medicine for me. It didn't hurt anymore, but the way he gently blew on my wounds as if they were treasures still made my heart flutter. Aren't you going to ask who I am? What if I'm a bad guy? Are you? He belatedly grew wary, stepping back half a pace, which only made him seem more interesting. I was about to tease him further when a woman with a blank expression walked up behind me and called him away in a cold voice. For a long time afterward, I found it hard to associate that woman's image with a mother. Of course, I grew up in an orphanage. I couldn't really say what a mother should be like. There are many kinds of misfortune in the world, some are stark and unhidden, while others are wrapped in the guise of happiness. Even I, someone who didn't even have a home, sometimes felt that Finn was even more pitiful than me. He had a father who saw him as a pawn, a mother who resented and detested him, and a grandfather who valued bloodline of all else and had no human warmth. And later, he even met me, his twisted uncle. After moved in, he occasionally started adding things to the house. Sometimes it was a bouquet of fresh flowers on the dining table, sometimes a new limited edition belt. The living room, bedroom, dining room, Finn's presence was everywhere. He liked his steak medium rare, preferred Coke to Pepsi, didn't eat ginger, but absolutely loved ginger candy. Sometimes, I would deliberately place our two mouthwash cups side by side. It looked just like a couple's. My first instinct for someone I like is possession. It was only after I learned about my brother's story that I understood where this obsession in my bones came from. But if that person was Finn, I wondered if what I was doing was too cruel. I didn't know, and I couldn't figure it out. The second floor study held my secrets. Things I'd secretly bought were hidden there. I wanted to use them, one by one, on Finn, though I wondered if he would cry and beg for mercy. I was practically bursting from holding back, but then I found out Finn was already writing smutty fanfiction to his paramour at school. I cancelled a $4.5 million collaboration project and rushed to the office, running every red light. Seeing those unacceptable words, I actually laughed in anger. Using his lower back curve to suck his finger? Damn it. That night, as I was cutting steak, I felt like I was about to lose control. What had I been holding back all these years? And now someone was being snatched right under my nose. The day Finn moved in, I should have just carried him directly to the second floor study, force-fed him medicine every day, and turned him into an idiot who could only beg me for mercy. But seeing him come home with his backpack, I forcibly suppressed that perverse thought. R had finally found some ease in life. He could cry when he wanted to, laugh when he wanted to, no longer needing to pretend to be well-behaved to please anyone. I knew about his fights and skipped classes at school. When he fought, I sent people to settle it. For everyone who called Finn a bastard, I had their legs broken and then reset. When he skipped class to inquire about Finn's mother's whereabouts, I entrusted people to keep searching. She was found, but then I hesitated. What if Finn really left with her? What would I do if he left? Now, with the love letter incident, the problem seemed even more complicated. Finn wasn't just constantly thinking about leaving, he also had someone else in his heart. That guy, Lee, what right did he have? Snap. I straightened the belt in my hand, forcefully suppressing the rage in my heart. Calm down, can't hit him too hard. Last time, when Finn was taken by a rival, the ringleader was someone I'd dealt with before. He swung both ways and would do any rotten thing. When the call came in, I didn't hesitate to abandon the Westwood project. It was the most crucial project for me to establish myself in the Duan family. Losing it meant nearly half a year's effort would be wasted. But losing Finn? I couldn't even imagine it. That day, when I picked Finn up to bring him home, I did lose some control. After taking him to the hospital that night, I sat alone in front of the building, smoking an entire pack of cigarettes. Things seemed to be gradually spiraling out of control. The feeling intensified when I saw the scratches on Finn's back. A dark red scratch, starting from his lower back, extended from faint to deep all the way to his shoulder blades. Where could they have been? The locker room? The classroom? Or at home? In an instant, I felt like I was being consumed by jealousy. Read it. You're not allowed to sleep until you've read this damn love letter 100 times. I pulled off the tie from around my neck as I walked, then opened the door to the second floor study. I had no reason. I had absolutely no reason left. The birthday gift Finn gave me was still tied to my left wrist. I rubbed it masochistically, a mix of pleasure and pain, but I couldn't stop. It wasn't until I was drenched in sweat that I used my smooth hand to wipe the mirror in front of me. Everything in this room had originally been prepared for Finn. Finn used to occasionally stay at school. After that day, I used the excuse of supervising him to have Uncle pick him up every day to bring him home. Aunt was also brought back. She had taken care of Finn in the Duan family for a long time, practically watching him grow up. She knew Finn's taste even better. Even for a meal that tasted like childhood, wouldn't Finn be more willing to come home? I wasn't really drunk when I escaped from the business dinner. It was just that the freshly graduated college student sitting across from me would cough lightly when drinking, turning bright red. It was somewhat similar to how Finn drank. When wasn't busy with schoolwork, I would occasionally take him to social events. Everything I learned from navigating the Duan family, I was willing to teach him. As long as he was willing, everything I gained in the Duan family, I would offer to him with both hands. It was what the Duan family owed him. Using the pretense of being drunk, I held Finn in my arms. His red lips were soft and wet, opening and closing, though I couldn't tell what he was saying. It wasn't until I felt the scratches on his back that the suppressed violence in my heart slowly resurfaced. That day I was too impatient. Not only did I scare him away, but I also attracted his paramour. He was wearing the same school uniform as Finn, like a couple's outfit. I sat downstairs, silently fuming, when it suddenly occurred to me that Finn would leave here eventually, go to college somewhere else, make new friends, and grow old together with someone his own age. The moment the guy, Lee, called Finn's phone, the tight string in my heart snapped. To hell with growing old together, Finn and I were meant to be. That night certainly went too far. Finn begged for mercy multiple times, but I showed no restraint. I deliberately left many marks on his back, completely covering the original red ones. They were so annoying to look at. And that love letter, I couldn't ignore it. I pinned Finn to the bed and made him reenact it for me repeatedly, his mouth unable to stop, and I made him replace the name Lee with mine. I wanted him to think of me every time he recalled that smutty fanfiction. I wanted him to forget everyone else and only remember me. I wanted him. The torment was indeed excessive. Later, when I carried Finn to clean him up, he was almost unconscious. After applying his medicine and making him breakfast, I changed into clean clothes and went to the company for a board meeting. I had already pushed back too much work recently to make sure I could go home early to have dinner with Finn. But then, right after finishing the morning board meeting, I received a call from a guy. Damn it, another one. It wasn't until I suppressed my anger and extracted the key points from his rambling that I realized the seriousness of the situation. Address. I grabbed my jacket from the back of my chair and floored it all the way to Finn's school. The scene of Finn almost getting into trouble before was vivid in my mind. I couldn't allow him to have any more accidents. By the time that unreliable person led me to Finn, I was almost frantic. That hooligan had a blade pointed at Finn's left leg. Just a hair's breadth away. I couldn't even imagine what would have happened if I'd been a moment too late. What was so great about that paramour named Lee? Was he really worth Finn putting himself in such danger? I held him, still somewhat shaken, my heart still racing, and then I heard about the $15,000 from Lee. $15,000, and Finn lent it to his paramour without batting an eye. I didn't care about the money. I cared about him. Finn probably still didn't know. His supposed biological grandfather almost sold him to an overseas investor for $15,000. I held him close, gently biting his chin as if to comfort him. Later, I didn't even know if I was comforting him or myself. I was worried, so I forced Finn to undergo a full physical. I just didn't expect to run into Finn's mother there. They sat side by side in a corner of the first-floor lobby, a scene that gradually overlapped with the first time I met Finn. The difference was that Finn's eyes no longer held that eagerness to please or awkwardness. So many years had passed, and their relationship seemed to have completely reversed. I gripped the steering wheel, staring at Finn without moving. If he chose to leave now, what would I do? I took off the watch from my left wrist, pinching my palm masochistically. It was the first birthday gift I'd ever received. The watch wasn't expensive. If I wore it to a business event, people would tease me, asking if I wasn't doing well. He said he just picked it out randomly and bought it with leftover money, but I knew that wasn't true. Finn always picked gifts for others carefully. Even the flowers on the dining table were always the most vibrant ones. I placed the watch on the display cabinet in the study, next to the ropes. In my eyes, this watch had long become a part of Finn. But if Finn wanted it back, I could only surrender it with both hands. Just like now, if he insisted on leaving, what could I do? The music in the car slowly began to play. No one has more than these two hands even with an embrace. You can't truly possess someone to possess, you must first learn to accept loss. But I had long since become unable to accept a world without Finn. I took a deep breath and leaned my head against the steering wheel, everything displayed in the study flashing through my mind. So, he better not leave. Never. Fortunately, he chose me.